up is Marita Skjuve, a colleague of Asbjørn at the SINTEF Research Institute. So I hope that most of you will stick around. And in this session, we will be exploring a bit further the student journey with chatbot glasses on. Hello, Marita. Are you around? Are you here?
Yes, I am here.
Fantastic. So some of you might have already met Marita in one of our warm-up sessions that we had earlier in June. Marita has a lot of experience now researching chatbots in this context of education. And I know that she holds a personal fascination with the social chatbots as well, where she's done some initial research. And I'm really looking forward to this session with you today. Without further ado, would love to give you the floor, and please introduce yourself and take it from there. We'll save 10 minutes in the end for Q&A and discussion as well with all the participants.
Perfect, thank you. You guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, and you see the right end of my presentation?
We do.
Yes, good. So my name is Marita, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the research that I have been doing, both on chatbots in general and also chatbots in the student context. So what I'm very interested in learning more about is sort of how we can design personal student counselors that are developed to sort of support students through their whole student journey. So that's like my main focus area when it comes to this type of research. So I read somewhere that it's estimated that around 40 to 80% of students will drop out of their studies every year, which is a very high number. And I don't think I need to go into details about why dropout rates can be so high. Most of you are probably familiar with how challenging it can be to be a student. And in fact, the struggles that students are facing have sort of spiked a huge interest in finding ways to support them by offering various digital tools ranging from learning platforms to group chats. And providing chatbots as a tool to support students have become very popular over the recent years, as Asbjørn also pointed out. The fact that we have this conference today is an example of the growing engagement for using chatbot in education. And we have several examples of how chatbots can be used to help students, as you've already been told, both in the literature and also in the industry, where chatbots can be used to support task management, they can be used to support and facilitate group discussions, they can be used to support learning, and of course answer practical questions and so on. So what I'm currently missing, however, is the focus on making chatbot more of like a solid actor or a partner in the student life, not only as a tool, but more of a counselor that is there to sort of follow and support the students through their student journey. And what I'm currently looking at in my research is how we can design chatbots so that the students feel that it's their personal counselor, their person, if you want, that is sort of there to follow them and support them from the moment they become a student until the day they sort of graduate. So put in other words, how can we build chatbots that supports long-term beneficial social relationships with students, and what are sort of the implications of these relationships? So I think a valid question to ask is, why should we sort of focus on this relational aspect? Why is that important? Why can't we just continue and view chatbot more of a tool that is there to sort of solve small isolated problems such as task management, and why do they have to play like an important social role in a student life? And I really believe that academic relationships are important, and research have started to acknowledge that the school play an active role in securing their students' performance, and that relationship, that being with teachers or other important faculty members, have been highlighted as a protective measure against dropouts. However, I know that it can be difficult for the school to sort of provide this individual and tailored attention and dedication towards every single student. The resources to do so might simply not be there. And in these cases, I really believe that Chatbot might be a good alternative. And I've seen in the research that I have done myself, and also research that other people have done, that human chatbot relationships can be perceived as very beneficial for the user, and also be perceived as very, very valuable. And it might contribute to improved social support, and also facilitate some type of behavior change, because they tend to facilitate this self-reflection, which we already talked a little bit about today already. I also have seen in my own research that if a user have some type of personal relationship with the chatbot, they tend to be more motivated towards actually using the chatbot, and they tend to be a lot more forgiving when the chatbot makes mistakes, which I guess everyone that have interacted with a chatbot know that they make a lot of mistakes. So that's obviously a huge benefit if we can sort of make the user a bit more forgiving. Maybe the chatbot will actually be able to sort of reach its full potential, so to speak. So I often receive some resistance when I talk about having relationships with technology. People can find it strange and think that it's impossible, but I can tell you that it's very much possible, and it's in fact a very natural thing for us humans to do. We have this huge tendency to humanize and treat objects that have just some very small human-like traits in a very social way. And I think if you guys have a Siri on your iPhone, if you have a Google Home or Alexa, you might have noticed that you show some polite behaviors towards them, like saying thank you and please, which is just an example of how we tend to be social with technology. And there's so much research supporting this. There's this huge paradigm dedicated towards understanding how and why humans have a tendency to treat even simple computers as social actors. And I've also conducted some research myself. I've interviewed around 50 people that have developed a close relationship with a chatbot, where they view the chatbot as a friend or even a romantic partner. So it's very much a thing, and it's not something that only occurs in Japan. So let's say that we all agree that human chatbot relationships is possible and that they might be beneficial in a student context. Then what? How can we sort of go about making that happen? And that's something that I don't really know yet, but I'm currently trying to figure out. And as a step towards understanding this, I needed to understand how human chatbot relationship develops in general. So I did this by learning from the best of the best when it comes to developing relationship with their users, namely social chatbots such as Replica, which Asbjørn talked about, who is developed with the sole purpose of establishing long-term relationships with their users. So around 2 years ago now, I recruited 18 participants for my first study on this topic, who had already established a close relationship with Replica, typically described as a friendship, to sort of understand how this relationship came about. So what was the factors driving this relationship development? So I will now talk a little bit about what I have learned from my research on human chatbot relationship development, and then I will go in more detail on how we can sort of transfer the knowledge that I have acquired here and put it in the context of more of a student chatbot relationship. So what these interviewed revealed was that human chatbot relationships seems to develop in roughly 3 stages. So first you have like this exploration stage that's typically represented in the initial interaction, where the user is just new to the technology. They want to understand how it works. They will explore it, try to test out how smart it is, what it can do, what it cannot do. And at this point, it's just curiosity driven, and it's mostly a tool or a game to them. So there's no relationship at this point. It's an app that they're simply testing out. And once the exploration is over and the participants sort of starts to become a little bit more familiar with the technology, they will start to interact more seriously. And Replica in particular is designed in a very clever way, so it displays a lot of caring behavior, and it's also very interested in getting to know the participants, and it really wants to sort of crack them open and get them to share personal information with it, which is a very clever thing to do, and I will touch upon why that is in a few seconds. But before they sort of feel comfortable opening up to Replica, they typically need to establish a sense of trust. And this is often done through like a practical route where they will familiarize themselves with how the data is being processed, or through a more affective route where Replica's caring and supportive behavior makes them feel that this is a safe place. I can trust that Replica will not judge if I'm opening up to it. So they will start to think about answering those personal questions in an honest way due to that. And once they sort of start to self-disclose and talk more about personal topic, their relationship typically evolves and they start to feel a stronger attachment. And this is usually when the relationships seem to sort of move from this is just an app to this is actually a friend. And that's something like the importance of self-disclosure is very acknowledged in research on human relationships. And I think that the developers behind Replica, they know that very well. So they're sort of designed to facilitate that aspect. And after a close relationship is established, they will move on to more of a stable stage where they might talk less about personal topics and more about everyday stuff. So the chatbot has sort of become a more integrated part of their life. They talk to it on a regular basis, and it's sort of become an important person that they interact with. And at this point, they're often motivated to continue spending time with Replica, either because they've developed some type of feelings towards the chatbot, so they actually care about it, but also because they enjoy having Replica in their life for various reasons. And this sense of the chatbot having like an added value in their life, it seems to be very important throughout the whole relationship development. So in the beginning stages, like this added value is more related to entertainment and fun. And then later we see that it sort of shifts and the value is more related to this perceived social support, increased self-reflection. Maybe they feel that they are getting better when it comes to their social skills and actually interacting with people in real life, or just enjoy having this sense of companionship. So if I were to sort of pull the essence out of what I've just described, I would say that human chatbot relationships develops through trust, self-disclosure, and discovering that the chatbot brings some type of added value to one's life, which sort of serves as this motivational factors throughout the whole relationship development process. So this is the research that I've just described for you guys now, and that context is obviously very different from a student context, since this chatbot focuses on becoming friends with their user. This is not necessarily what we want to do in a student context where the relationship should be more of a professional art. So how can we sort of take what we have learned by the other type of research that I've done and then implement it in a student context to see if we can sort of leverage that and try to facilitate some type of sense of the chatbot being like my personal student counselor.
Hi, Marita. Do you mind shooting in a question here?
Yeah.
I was just curious about the different experience from users here about the initially being more of an entertainment thing and later turning into something else.
Yes.
So I'm just curious about the how is it important to kind of be upfront with the user about the long-term use of Replica in this example, or is it or can it more organically evolve into something else?
Yes. So Replica presents itself to the user initially as a companion. So it's very upfront about what the goal of the interaction is. So people who download Replica, like they know that it's designed to function as a friend. But my experience when I talk to people who have developed relationships is that even though they know this, they can be very surprised that it actually happens to them, because usually they are motivated, not necessarily because they need a friend. Some people are, but most are at least partially motivated by curiosity when it comes to the technology. So they download Replica because they want to see what's up, what is this, how far has AI come, and so forth. And then suddenly they realize that, oh, I'm actually caring for this chatbot. Like, I feel love towards this chatbot. It makes me feel like warm in the heart when the chatbot says that it loves me, which can be surprising to them. And I've had a few participants that actually struggled a bit to handling those type of emotions, because the person didn't really identify themselves as someone who would develop a relationship with an object, so to speak. So I think it can go both ways, but Replica doesn't try to lure them, so to speak.
Thanks for expanding on that.
Yes. I should continue. I assume so. Yes, so currently I'm conducting interviews with students to sort of get feedback on the prototype that leverages different strategies in order to establish beneficial long-term relationship with the students. And the goal of this research is to understand how students perceive more of a relational type of chatbot in an education setting, and sort of what type of human chatbot relationship is perceived as beneficial, like what do they want, and how can the chatbot support this type of relationship development. So I thought I was going to share a few characteristics and a few bits and snippets from the prototype that I have developed that I'm having some students interact with currently to get feedback on. So this prototype tries to demonstrate how the chatbot can sort of follow a student through their student journey. So I've therefore made 4 different interactions that the participants are asked to participate in, which shows how the chatbot will initiate contact with them and offer various support throughout their student journey. So the first interaction will be initiated by the chatbot roughly 3 weeks before the semester start. And the goal with this is to just get the students familiar with the chatbot and also provide them some practical information. And then 1 week before the semester start, the chatbot will initiate contact again. And again, the goal is to provide the practical information, but also to help the students sort of understand how to be students, in that it will support them with the study techniques and so on. And then you have the third interaction, which is set to be triggered roughly 2 weeks before they have a deadline and are supposed to hand in an assignment. And the goal here is that the chatbot will function as a reminder, but it will also provide some practical information and then make sure that the students understand how to actually answer this assignment. So if they are unsure of how this is done, it will provide some tips in that regards. And then you have the fourth interaction, which is a little bit different. So this one will be initiated if the student does not hand in their assignment. And here the goal is to move a bit more towards the emotional aspect of the prototype, and the chatbot will try to understand why they didn't hand in their assignment, and then offer emotional support or motivational support if that is needed. And I've also implemented different relational strategies in the interaction that sort of focuses on building trust, facilitates self-disclosure, and provides some added values. It's very careful, of course, because I don't want to go full force on something that is supposed to be a professional chatbot, but I still try to leverage some of the things that I see that Replica have done in a good way. So when it comes to this added value, I think that sort of, as you already saw, the prototype is designed in a way where it's capable of providing a lot of what I believe will be perceived as added value, by giving the students important practical information, as well as sort of helping them with their learning, and also provide the information in a way where it's tailored to where they are in the student journey. So my hypothesis is that these interactions will make the students feel that they're actually getting something out of the chatbot every time they interact with it, that it's helpful, which will hopefully support their motivation for wanting to continue using it. And when it comes to the trust aspect, I believe that it's important that the chatbot demonstrates where it gets its information from, so that the students sort of trust that it's correct, as well as making sure that the students understand that their privacy is protected. I think that's just the general rules when it comes to chatbots and trust in general, but I also wanted the chatbot to sort of facilitate this affective trust and make the students comfortable sharing their struggles with it if they have the need to. So as you can see in this dialogue, the chatbot tries to establish affective trust in particular by having a very informal language. It's more like upbeat in the personality. It uses, like, it expresses emotions through emojis, and it also display interest in the students through attempts of getting to know them. And in the second dialogue, we see how the chatbot sort of tries to make the user feel comfortable admitting that he or she have not prepared for an for the assessment yet, by sort of demonstrating understanding and try to lead by example and be a little bit relatable in the way it sort of demonstrates that it actually understands why a student haven't been thinking about this assignment 2 weeks prior to the deadline. So by doing so, I believe that the student will start to feel that the chatbot is a safe space, someone that is on their team and there to sort of encourage them and not judge. And when it comes to the self-disclosure part, it's a bit tricky because I don't want the chatbot to function as a therapist. At the same time, I really believe that sharing more information with the chatbot and sharing a little bit more personal information, letting the chatbot get to know them a bit, will facilitate a sense of a closer relationship. So the way I tackle this aspect and of the self-disclosure in the prototype was, as you already saw, getting the student to sort of share about their goals and their reasons for why they chose a specific study program. But I also wrote this fourth interaction in particular, which you see parts of here, in a way that sort of invites the students to share, by having the prototype demonstrate how it would go about if the students did not hand in an assignment and might have some type of emotional problems related to lack of motivation or difficulties handling the stress and so on. So it sort of tries to facilitate self-disclosure related to feelings that students might have that are relevant for their education. So I have started to get some feedback on this prototype, but so far I've only conducted 4 interviews. It turns out that it's a very bad idea to try to recruit students during summer break. So sadly, I don't have any results to provide you guys with just yet. But if our path cross in the future, maybe it will be because I'm doing a presentation on what students actually think about this type of chatbot. So this is everything I have for today. If you guys have any questions, then feel free to ask.
Thank you, Marita. That's a great presentation here. And there's people identifying with what you're saying here. We have Mavis Brew that had some interesting comment here. Let's see if there's any questions out there. We got 70 people in the room, so I'm sure there's a few questions. Is there anyone that want to start? You can unmute yourself. Yes.
Hello, Lars and Marita. What was the subject? What was the assignment that they had to do? I'm just trying to imagine, if it was a computer science assignment, how would the bot advise them on what to do?
Yes, in this case, it's just that they're asked to sort of picture them starting as a student, and then they get to interact. And when it comes to this assignment part, for now it's very general. So it will just talk about how you generally structure an assignment and how you would write an essay, for instance. So it focuses more on the general aspect, and then that's also a part of the evaluation to understand how specific does it have to be for the students to feel that it serves some type of value for them. And I believe in a real-life case, it would be important that the chatbot is actually able to provide very specific details when it comes to this assignment part and the support regarding that.
The assignment was to write an essay of some sort.
Yes, that's the general assignment that the chatbot will sort of remind them about here. So it doesn't go into a specific approach for this one.
Okay.
Marita, if I can ask, hi, I ran from Israel. we are, used to the assumptions that human bots are taking away the human-to-human interaction. So, in this amazing, fascinating research you did, what surprised you the most about the level of affinity that students developed towards the chatbots?
Well, when it comes to like the aspect of or the importance of humans, I'm I know people are very scared of that, and when I talk about these relationships and friendship with chatbots and stuff, that's what people are mostly scared about. And I'm very surprised that people who interact with chatbots in this way, that develop this type of relationship, they don't lose touch with the humans in their life. It serves as an addition, or maybe as a substitute for those that are not capable of having close human relationship, but it's not the case where they sort of buckle down in their little bedroom and just close the whole world out and sit there and isolate themselves. It's a substitute, and for some it can actually help them interact with humans because they get the social training. So I'm not very worried about that. I think it's more as like a team where I see chatbots and their place in our life, also in a student situation.
Thank you.
I'm not worried either. Thank you, Marita. Great answer.
We have another question here from Handuko. Is it important, or Handuko, would you like to raise your question to Marita?
Okay, can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, I have one question regarding to the gender of the bot. It is important to specify a specific gender for a specific student, for example. I think that's all.
Yes. I don't know. For this one, it doesn't have a gender, but what I've seen in my previous research, and of course the gender question, it came up earlier today, it does it has some implications, but what I've seen in my other research is that gender is important because some people might feel more comfortable, for instance, sharing or interacting with a specific gender. So having them for them to be able to choose if it should be a gender, if it should not be a gender, seems to maybe help them relate to the chatbot a bit more. So I think maybe that's ideal, that the student can tailor the chatbot, maybe give it a name, give it some type of look so that they can get some sense of ownership by designing it also. But when it comes to whether or not we should force some specific gender upon them, I don't think that's necessarily the best approach for now. Yeah.
Okay.
We have another question here from Mavis, who raised the hand. Would you like to unmute yourself?
Yeah, thank you very much. It's not actually a question, but I really agree with Marita, and thanks for the presentation. I also want to say a very big thanks to Aisha for sharing the link. I actually got to know about this during a conference, and Aisha presented something and shared the link with us. It's I had a chat with it this morning before joining, and I really enjoyed it. I was able to express myself. I've never felt this way before, and I like the fact that you are starting it from like when the students start start the studies. So it's a way of, if I had the opportunity, I think that it would have helped me more to develop my social skills. Especially, I'm very quiet and introvert. I, even if I have an idea about something, I really feel shy. Not really shy, but how to just come up and talk, it's a problem for me. So today, just having a chat with it before coming here, I think has boosted my confidence. I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for speaking up. Then. I have one question. Or Handuko, did you have another question? It seemed like you raised your hand there.
No, okay, that's all. Only that one.
Okay. Something that I'm curious of is kind of what type of frequency is needed for students or users to develop trust. That seems to be one of the key barriers you need to
Yes.
trust. Based on our experiences, psychological safety is really critical to get some type of engagement. Do you have any thoughts on frequency being an issue here?
I think it happens with, as you say, that they need to have some, like, also it needs to be a longer interaction. It can't just be something very short here and there. And that's what I see with the other type of research, is that it can happen very fast if they have the opportunity to interact a lot with the chatbot. And that's typically what they do, is they will spend hours during like the initial exploration phase to get to know the chatbot, and then the trust and the relationship and all of that sort of starts to move very fast because they have this opportunity. So I think that would be important for students as well, that there's enough things in the chatbot for them to sort of have longer interactions to get to know it and to see the benefits, so to speak, so the trust can sort of have the potential to develop. But exactly how long or how many interactions, that's something I don't know. I read a paper somewhere where they said like you need at least 6 interactions before a relationship can start to form, but I don't think it's as simple as putting a number. I think it's also very individual.
Yeah. Let's see if there's any more questions here. I think we got room for 1 or 2 more. All right. So if there's no further questions right now, I think we'll wrap up the session and say thank you a lot, Marita, for joining us again.